everybody, it's Friday night, I'm Katallina, and this is the week that was, where we're going to be talking about my top 5 episodes of anime that I watched in the past week. Since this is our second week of spring season, I'm going to do my best to be focusing on episodes that are of shows that actually premiered this week, since we had one half of what's going on premiering last week, and we have one half of what's premiering this week with the exclusion of stuff like Demon Slayer or Kaiju number 8. I can't do anything about that, but I want to make sure that I give you guys some heads up on what I think are some of the most interesting things you could currently be watching, so we're going to get into that. But before we do, I quickly want to make an announcement about a project that I'm planning to undertake for the channel, which is that I want to actually do sort of impression videos based off of watching the first 3 episodes of a bunch of different series. Some of them are going to be ones we have on the channel that we're discussing in detail. Some are going to be shows that I'm watching on my own time. I'll do my best to get through these and make sure they're up for you, but my goal with this is to make quick, easy, and digestible videos where you'll be able to get an idea of what a show is about, what's great about it, what might not work for you, and whether I would recommend it, to help people hopefully find some new anime before it gets too far into the season and it just becomes too much to actually pick up a new show. Anyway, now that we've got the news out of the way, let's get to the top 5 list. Coming in at number 5, we have Viral Hit. I'm honestly shocked that this ended up so low on the list because when I was looking at shows to watch for the season, this is one that really grabbed my interest. Now, we've only seen 1 episode of this so far. I'm certainly not trying to throw it away or toss it under the bus. But I must say that it was a really hard episode for me to get through because I really detest bullying. I hate seeing people suffer. I understood going in that that was going to be part of what's going on here because that sets up the motive and reasoning for why our main character actually ends up getting into the situation he does, and it's going to provide the means through which the payoff of his success is going to be realized. But my lord, this kid got bullied hard. Like, this kid got brutalized. It was really bad. And it really sucked because, like, not only did he get totally, like, steamrolled, but the situations that he was in where he actually kind of got to get back at the situation in any way weren't really at a level that I found satisfying, possibly because obviously he hasn't gotten to take on the people who've put him through the majority of his misery. And I suppose that's fair, and we're gonna have to wait, and I'm sure we'll get to that. I'm definitely continuing the series, don't worry about that at all, but I just wanted to point out that it just wasn't really the tops for me. The other reason for that is that the guy who's gonna be helping him make the videos, I think his name is Snapper, and he is an absolute scumbucket. Like, I despise him. I think I hate him more than the main bully that was really giving a lot of trouble, because he was just an absolute puke. So it's going to be really hard for me watching these two work together. Mind you, Snapper could actually end up becoming a more interesting character. He could have depth. He could have a change of heart. I love characters that do that. But oh my goodness, my first impression of him is just no. Anyway, those are my thoughts on Viral Hit for now, and as the weeks progress, I'm sure we'll talk about it more later. At number 4, we have Vampire Dormitory, which came in with a pretty solid episode. Although, like I've been noticing with me and watching anything that's shoujo, it took me over 2 hours. I don't know why this happens. I watch a shonen episode, I'm done in 25 minutes. I get through it, I go back, I do my stuff, it's fine. I'll watch a shoujo of any form, it's like I'm 2 to 2.5 hours because I'm pausing, thinking, going back, rewinding, look at the things. It's weird, man. I don't know what it is with that. I don't remember doing that when I was a kid with Sailor Moon or anything, but maybe it's just that I didn't have a remote. I don't know. But anyway, my big gripe with the episode is the way that they did the beginning and the ending, and the fact that they actually made our lead lady a unreliable narrator who could actually end up confusing some people, because I'm really sure there are going to be some people who are going to come into the show, watch it for the first 20 minutes, think that it's going to actually be LGBT, and then find out, oh, it's a woman, like we're dealing with Twelfth Night from Shakespeare or something. And while that's okay as a story premise, I think it could really confuse some people. Also, I really didn't like the whole aspect of them leading in with the idea that she attempted suicide. That really bothered me, and it made it a lot harder for me to connect with her. Now, to be fair, by the end of the episode, they did a great job at turning it around and making it so that I understood much more what was actually going on with her, so that I'm much more interested in seeing what's going on going forward. Also, the guy that we see at the very, very end of the episode, dude with the dark hair, he looks really promising. So if you're interested in shoujo or romance or vampires, definitely check this one out. The art and music are incredible. The overall story, despite my own personal pet peeves with the storytelling mechanisms involved, ends up being really good. I'm really looking forward to seeing where they'll take this in the next episode. But as I said, I wouldn't be being honest if I didn't point out the things that made it really hard for me to watch, and hopefully it'll improve. Next up at number 3, we have Unnamed Memory. This is one that was really high up on my list because I love anything with fantasy and fairy tales, and when you mix romance into that, you have me there and you probably do not have me moving, and that is totally what happened here. I really like the leading characters, Oscar and Tinashe, whose name I'm going to butcher through the whole season, I assure you. It's just gonna happen, but I'll do my best. I really like the fact that they, as main characters, were able to actually have the episode almost entirely revolve around their communication and their banter and their interactions, and yet the episode was still very strong, very interesting, and did a great job at holding my interest. We did see enough, at least like minuscule levels of combat within the first episode to show that we will have some other things going on, which will be good to mix up with the romance, because romance all by itself, at least for me, is super duper boring, but shows without romance can still also be a bit of a snooze. I kind of like the two mixed together, and I like, depending on the show, sometimes I want romance to be plot A and something else to be plot B, and then sometimes I want that swapped. But I really liked how they set everything up with these characters. They've set up some really interesting rules for the world that they live in, and it'll be interesting to see whether or not Oscar can actually get Tinashe to like him and to actually want to become his wife. At number 2, we have Konosuba Season 3. I know that some of you are going to be like, how the hell is Konosuba Season 3 not number 1? And I'll explain to you why. I really loved the first episode, and I'm not actually frustrated by the fact that so much of it ties back into the movie. I actually like that, because what that shows me is that the author is actually aiming for a solid level of character continuity, and also, according to what I've researched, that movie was actually based off of sections of the manga, so that it makes sense that the story actually just kept moving forward, because it wasn't like the movie was some kind of non-canon thing or some OVA. What I will say though is that the reason I don't actually have this at number 1 is because I've tried to make my primary focus when I am doing these types of videos onto trying to help people find new things to watch. Konosuba is not here because I want to promote it. Konosuba is here because its first episode was so good that I had no choice. And I really loved a lot of things about it. I thought that it was really cool how they continue the stuff that was going on with Kazuma and Megumin in the movie, and they made what happened in the movie connect to what was happening in this episode. And then I also really loved the whole Kazuma thinking about becoming a monk thing. It was hilarious, and I super loved the whole sequence with the plant monster and how that ended up affecting what Kazuma thought and what he ultimately ended up doing. If you do not watch Konosuba, if it's for personal reasons where you know you don't like it and you don't want it, I understand that. But if you haven't checked Konosuba out and you like comedy, provided that you're okay with comedy that can be of a sexual nature, 100% check Konosuba out. It's awesome. But as I said, it's not number 1 because there is another show I actually want to promote. And let's talk about that now, because at number 1, we have Grandma and Grandpa Turn Young Again. Oh my goodness. I did not expect this to end up being my number 1 pick of the week. I am honestly in shock. I actually didn't end up watching the first episode of this until this morning, because I was like, oh my goodness, I haven't checked this out and I'm going to be doing this episode, and I wanted to make sure it was one of the shows I watched in case it ended up being something that I super loved. And I have to come here and I have to tell you guys how awesome this is, and I totally have to sing its praises because it did everything that I wanted it to do and more. It is super cute, it is generally super wholesome. It has a couple things I'll point out in a minute where it's like, this might not work for you but what it did that really caught me right away was it had this beautiful moment where they were talking and stuff before they actually ate the magic apple and became young. And you see the grandfather, he's sitting there and he's thinking about all the things that he wished he could have done for his wife. And that really hit me, like it's really tough because, I mean, I am not the youngest person in the anime community. I'm not as old as those characters are, but I mean, I'm in the middle of life, and to sit there and listen to these elderly people and to listen to them like expressing their hopes and dreams and fears and griefs over the life that they have lived and how they wish they had done certain things different or wish they could have done things differently, it kind of gave me the feelings that I see a lot of people experience when they talk about the movie Up. And I mean, as somebody who was very close to her grandparents before they passed away and stuff, it just really got me thinking and feeling and stuff. And it totally caught me off guard how much it was going to make me feel that way. And that really stuck with me throughout the episode. Now, to make it really clear, the vast majority of this anime that I'm talking about is incredibly comedic. It is really cool though, because it has all this wonderful comedy, but then it'll have these underlying situations that they'll be talking about, a smidge here, a nudge there, that will bring you back to the reality that these people are not young. These people are elderly. And another thing that it does that is really super cool is the idea that it has these people regress in age in a physical sense, but they don't lose their elderly personalities, and they don't just instantly stop their hobbies and in things that they enjoyed as elderly people. It's so cute because they're still going to this like community center and hanging out with their other elderly friends, or they're taking part in like senior citizen activities and crap, and it's just absolutely hilarious, out of this world. It really reminds me of when I used to travel with my grandparents as a kid, and most of our friends, whether theirs or mine or just collective, were fellow senior citizens, and I was so used to that growing up. I had more friends who were elderly than I did my own age, just because of the way that my life was. So it really made me think of that, and it was just a really wonderful, warm feeling for me, and I loved it. Now, there are two things I want to talk about with regard to this series, which may or may not be a deal breaker or a pet peeve for you, and they were kind of things where an alarm bell went off for me, not to the point where I don't want to watch, but where I'm aware that something happened where I wasn't entirely sure how I felt about it. The first of these is that there is a situation where the grandmother gets kind of jealous over things that are going on, and at a certain point she actually slaps the grandfather. I hate this. This is something that we see a lot in TV. I notice it a lot in anime, actually. Like, you see all kinds of situations where girls hit guys. And I mean, like, I can get it in a comedic sense to an extent when you've got some pervy asshole who's done something and he gets, like, the comedic lump on the head or something. But the thing is, with this situation with the grandmother and the grandfather didn't actually do anything wrong. It was really messed up. And I mean, given how sweet and wholesome the majority of this anime is, it really broke my heart to see this really nasty trope show up in here and make it seem like it's okay for a woman to just hit a man whenever it's convenient for her. I just didn't think that was right. I mean, my philosophy about that kind of thing is that if it would be okay for a guy to do it to a girl, then a girl can do it because it's equal opportunity. But obviously, when it comes to something where we would see a couple, a long-term established couple in this sense, suddenly resort to some kind of violence like that, I found that incredibly disappointing. Now, that's just my take and my humor. You might be 100% okay with it. And the thing is, when it comes to humor in a show or something, obviously, you have to kind of take what it is and accept that that's going to be there. The other thing that might set off alarm bells for some people, and I was a little squicked when I first saw it, and then I thought about it more and it didn't really bother me as much, is that there is this entire gag that runs throughout the show where, whether it is the granddaughter or the mother who married into the family to the father, actually end up having these like goo eyes for the grandfather. And of course, this is what was setting the grandmother off in the sequence I was discussing earlier. And it's just kind of weird because, like, on one hand, sure, he looks younger, he looks different, he looks whatever. But the idea that suddenly all of these female family members are fawning over him like he's a rock star or something, I get the joke, but it was just like, yuck. Fortunately, they started off with this, and then they kind of backed away from it to an extent, in so much that they made it so that the teenage granddaughter actually ends up with this crush or this friend or this male, whatever you want to call it, who ends up coming and visiting at their house and stuff. And there's a great sequence with him. And we actually see him and her, the two grandparents, and the middle family parents, like the parents of the granddaughter, all walking along and stuff in the ending sequence, which shows that this is going to be something where we're likely going to be seeing the romance of the grandma and grandpa and what's happening with them, but we might also, as a side story, see something happen between the granddaughter and this young man. And I'm glad to see something like that, because if this ends up being something where I constantly was seeing the mother and the granddaughter making goo eyes at grandma's husband, that just wouldn't work for me. I don't think I'd care for it too much. I think that would be kind of weird and it would sort of put me off. We'll see how it goes, since we've only really seen episode 1 so far. But anyway, those are my thoughts on Grandma and Grandpa Turn Young Again, which is my favorite thing that I actually saw this week as far as new releases, and which I wanted to make sure people knew about and had some information on, because I think it's the kind of series that, because of what it is and how it is and all that, some people might sleep on and miss out, and that would be a real shame. If you are at all remotely interested in the concept of two elderly people eating a magic apple, regaining their youth, and then seeing what they would do with it, I would 10 out of 10 recommend this, because it was really funny, really cute, and on the whole, I really loved it. Anyway, that's going to be everything that I wanted to talk to you guys about today on the week that was. This is Katallina, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!